So it's not down to the greed side of it at all. It's the power. It is the absolute power. It is the total control. And I mean, there is a very small, for want of a better word, elite, who believe themselves to be the rightful rulers of a global fiefdom. And they perceive that, you know, through the latter part of the 19th century in particular, there was just a little bit too much freedom out there, and you know, they were losing control of this stock, their slaves, humanity. And so they put this agenda into play, and we can certainly trace it back to the latter part of the 19th century. And of course it's just being accelerated at a phenomenal rate.
Is there a philosophical basis for that in history?
There is, but we don't have the time, you know, to really get into that tonight. I mean, I don't have any of the copies here, but I've produced a trilogy of DVDs that I recorded over a period of 3 years, starting in 2006. And the only reason I didn't put it out before 2006 was because I didn't think, you know, I didn't feel totally comfortable that I could put it out in such a way that it would be, you know, comprehensible. But this trilogy, which I expanded upon each year, looks at the philosophy behind this outrageous agenda. And it, you know, what I've effectively come to the realization of is that these people are not human. I'm going to choose my words very carefully and don't read anything into it. They are not human as we understand humanity. You know, the one thing that I'm sure, you know, unites all of us is a fundamental love and compassion and, you know, an empathy for other people. I mean, I've lived and worked in many, many different countries around the world. You know, lived and worked with many, many different nationalities, different creeds, different cultures. And, you know, I actually struggled to come up with somebody I didn't really like. You know, everybody got on with each other. And yet, you know, there are a group of people there who will think nothing of starting wars, creating wars, and using humanity as pawns. I mean, Kissinger, of course, spells it out in words of one syllable. I mean, he is, let me come up with a couple of them. You know, control the oil and you control nations, control the food and you control people. Paul Bremner, who was the US ambassador to Iraq, when the fledgling Iraqi government had a democratic constitution forced upon them. Article 81 of that democratic constitution specifically prohibits Iraqi farmers from saving their seeds. Guess who they have to buy their seeds from?
Monsanto.
Yeah, yeah. Monsanto. Yeah. I mean, it's completely outrageous. I mean, what human would even counter such a suggestion? I mean, it is totally outrageous. But you know, these guys have a sort of a corporate mindset that says basically humanity are just ignorant slaves and to be abused for our benefit.
What's the name of your trilogy?
Project Zion.
Ian, I'm sure you very well remember the British parliamentary questions of Fred Goodwin and Tom McKillop last November. In those questionings, they were asking them, you know, what went wrong, taking the bullshit apologies from them. They cited some guy they had, the questioner cited some guy they'd hired who pretty much brought their books to them and said, this is an insanity, they fired him, he'd sued them,
exactly.
Regarding order. Went on then, the questioner then went on to say, isn't Peter Sutherland on your board? What does he think of this? That was all he really said. As soon as he said it, I thought, of course, he's in there to make sure they did exactly as was done. Now, as you well know, Peter Sutherland is now chairman of BP. I've been saying to people in the upcoming to this Lisbon Treaty, listen, I said, you know all that oil and gas we don't have off the west coast of Ireland? Wait 5 years and see how much oil and gas we do have. Oh, and you know how hard it is, how hard it would be to get it if it was there. Wait and see how easy it will be. And when you have somebody like that who is Irish and head of BP and all the rest, well, need I say any more? Oh,
absolutely. And you've hit the nail absolutely on the head, because over the last certainly 5 years, maybe more, no, 6, 7 years, the amount of exploration, oil exploration that has been going on has been incredible. Yeah, because what you've got to remember is that at the end of 1998, so a little over, well, nearly 11 years ago, the price of oil was $9.81 a barrel. Right? And the reason it was $9.81 a barrel was because there was still the perception that there was just so much of this stuff. It was so easy to get at, you know, supply exceeded demand, and that $9.81 was as much as the market could bear. Well, of course, you know, that was very quickly manipulated because the US needed to actually put more money into the international arena. And the fastest way for the US to get more money into the international arena is to raise oil prices, because oil is traded in US dollars. Well, as of course the price of oil rose, it rose up to $147 in July of 2008. But of course it was a gradual rise. But once it got into the $30 per barrel and beyond, all of a sudden, for the first time in nearly 30 years, new exploration ships were commissioned. And there have been many finds around Europe, and not one of them has been made public.
And when we vote, if we vote yes, it's no longer our oil and gas.
Exactly.
Just like Bertie Ahern, our previous Prime Minister, gave the gas field off Mayo to Shell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why, I still don't know, but he did. Nice gift, thank you.
Well, you know what? Denmark is so pissed off at the fact that they have been treated with disdain by the EU. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but Denmark is working with Greenland to give Greenland its independence. Because Denmark can do that outside of the EU treaty. And this has become viable because over the last few years, Greenland has established some phenomenal oil and gas and other mineral resources. And basically, so what's happening is there's a game plan in place for Greenland to effectively become, well, it is basically independent now, but it doesn't have the revenues to be totally independent. So there's actually a game plan, and what's happening is that the Danish government are subsidising the Greenlanders on a reducing basis until they get their oil and gas and other mineral activities up to speed.
Of course, obviously as well, Sutherland was the director of the WTO, and is probably very likely, it looks like Bilderberger Group.
Oh, without any shadow, yeah.
Without a shadow.
I mean,
one of the
don't even hesitate. I mean, the Bilderberger Group, don't underestimate their power. It was on the, I mean, our insiders told us that in April of this year, that one of the primary agenda items on the Bilderberger meeting was the neutralisation of Declan Gandhi. Now, you know, we didn't know how they were going to do it, but they did do it. We still don't know what they did. But, you know, it was actually quite interesting.
The Irish
Gandhi,
media made him out to look like
Say
a
again?
CIA. The Irish media made him out to look like a CIA asset.
oh, did they?
And
Okay.
they were in the EU to become a challenge to American power, and therefore the no vote.
So there you go. I mean, yeah, so the Bilderberger Group achieved exactly what they set out to achieve. Yeah, Declan Gandhi, right or wrongly, was attributed with effectively driving, you know, the awareness towards the no vote. He was the key player to neutralise. And his achievements got into the Bilderberger agenda. And as you can see, it worked. Thanks for that piece of information. So,
Yeah, just on Declan Gandhi and then it's mainly the Irish Times that carried that through, that agenda through this.
which is a Murdoch paper.
Yeah, I don't know, but they kind of just, they made it look like he was doing it all for business and greed and stuff. But there's one anecdote that nobody heard about him is that in the aftermath of the Katrina disaster, he had this. He does sell to kind of military big groups, but he only sells kind of like mobile phone kind of equipment. There's no kind of phones or
satellite communication.
And after Katrina, some kind of general over in America said, "Oh yeah, I remember there was that Irishman who gave a presentation the year before on how to, in the absence of a mobile phone network, Gandhi could set this thing up where he could get mobile phone network up and meet